This is Dr. Anastasia Chopoulos, the scientific healer, and today I'm going to be talking about ways to access your subconscious. Yes, you may have heard about muscle testing, but there are other ways to do it. So if muscle testing doesn't work, and I will talk about some of the reasons why it doesn't work and how to maybe get it to work. And if that doesn't work, I've got a couple of more really awesome tips for you to try. If you like this content, please give it a thumbs up rating and share it with your friends. So the first thing is that the usual way to access your subconscious is it usually takes hours and sometimes even weeks of practice. So, for example, there are people that have meditated for an hour or two at a time or even a whole day at a time to finally get access to those deep desires and hear that inner voice that you've got inside you. And then other ways, some athletes feel it. I know I used to run for an hour, sometimes two at a time every morning. And during that time, you stop thinking about where you are and you go somewhere else because it's too painful to keep thinking about putting one foot in front of the other, and things are rubbing and chafing and it's hot and I'm sweaty and ooh, I have to go to the bathroom. That's really tough. So you just sort of zone out. So it is a form of meditation, just like when you're driving and all of a sudden you realize you've gotten to your destination and you haven't, and you don't remember ever getting there. You were just sort of on autopilot. That's another one, and that'll take a while. And other ones would be to sit and journal for a very long time until you finally let your pen automatically write. So these are all long-term things, and they're all really, really helpful for the body, and it's really useful for you. And I just thought of another one, and this I discovered while doing it, that when I am painting, for example, let me raise this up a little bit. For example, the two paintings that are on either side of my head, when I learned how to paint, I started painting when I was 50 years old. And what I discovered is while I'm focused on the colors and the shapes and the image, that all of a sudden everything else in the world drops away. And while I'm in it, it's very healing and soothing, and thoughts will bubble up while I'm doing it. So these are things that take, 15, 20 minutes to an hour to 2 to 10. And sometimes some people who are really stubborn will take months and even years to develop that inner, kind of like that inner peace where all of that white noise that you have going around you falls away. One of the first things and one of the important things that I want to talk about in terms of doing any kind of subconscious work, any kind of accessing the subconscious, there are two things that you need to be aware of. And of course, some of this work doesn't matter, but in muscle testing, yes, is you stay strong, and muscle testing a no is when your muscles go limp. So sometimes you can have your polarity reversed. And so if I were to get up in the morning and ask myself, am I Anastasia? And the answer comes out to be no, that means that it's very likely that my polarity is reversed. So how do I fix that? One of the ways is to test to make sure that that's what's going on. So one way that you can test is you put the back of your hand on top of your head and ask, is this a yes? And if it comes up, no, this is my positive, right? And then you turn your hand over and you ask, no, and it'll collapse. If your polarity is reversed, then when you have your hand like this with the back of your hand there, you'll come up with a no. So you need to reverse polarity, right? So one way to do that, of course, is to run energy and shake it, shake your hands out like you're imagining energy going from the top of your head through your body down to your feet to get yourself grounded. Because a lot of times it's because we're not grounded. The way you ground is you just send a grounding cord from the base of your spine into the earth. And I always suggest to connect up to spirit so you're anchored in space, and it allows the energy flow to flow in the correct direction. So that's number one. And number two is to find out if you are hydrated. So there are very simple tests. When you look at old people's hands and you pull on the skin that is between the thumb and forefinger, if you pull on the skin and it bounces right back, that means that you are hydrated. And even though I'm an old person, I am very hydrated, and my skin is very supple because I drink basically up to a gallon of water. Just water, not tea, not coffee, not sodas, just plain water, up to a gallon, usually 3/4 of a gallon every day. And with the natural healthy foods I eat, it really, because there's a lot of cations in it, potassium, magnesium, calcium, all of these really helpful cations in your body will help keep you hydrated and help keep your cells plumped up, including your skin cells. So ladies, if you want to look younger, the best way to do that, everybody asks me, what do you put on your skin? And I say, it's not what I put on it, it's what I put in it. So make sure you get your fresh veggies and a little bit of fruit, not too much sugar, and drink a lot of water. And that will improve your hydration levels. The other quick way to do it is to simply tug on your hair a little bit. So you can tug either at the nape of your neck or at the top by your crown, and you just tug it a few times. And then you ask, I am hydrated. You just say a statement, and I have a yes. And if it's a no, a good way to test it is to put some water in your mouth and then try and test again, and it'll come up a yes. And if that's a yes, then that means you need to drink more water. So hydration is really important, and polarity is really important if you are going to do a muscle test. And this is a really fast and easy way to check it out. Some people, no matter what they do, they cannot muscle test. It escapes them. So the one way that I've seen a lot of people doing it, I don't like it because it's a little slower than me tapping on my finger. So for those of you that have seen some of my other videos on muscle testing, you can either tap your fingers. For muscle testing, you do not need to test to see how strong you are, right? One of them that I started doing because it's really fast is you just tap, and when it's a no, your fingers will collapse. Other people do ring testing. You don't need to squeeze your thumb and forefingers together. You just hold them gently, and when it's a no, the fingers will slide apart. And other people will take the right index finger and press it on their left ring finger and push down on it, and this is a yes, and the no collapses. And other people will just simply take a ring and push on it. So it's similar to the other ring test. So that's a few of them. When I first started doing it, which was over 25 years ago, I would lift a weight and use the deltoid muscle, basically the shoulder cap here on the arms, which is a really good indicator muscle. And there's 3 sets, the front, middle, and back. And a lot of chiropractors will use different ones depending on which direction they have you hold your arm, right? And I would take a weight and pull it up. Like it was a 5-kilo weight. I lived in Germany, 5 kilos, about 11 pounds. And I would just pull it up and make a statement. This food is good for me. Like let's say I'd be holding a potato, and I'd put the potato here along the front meridians, and I would ask, this food is good for me, and I'd pull the weight up. And if it wasn't, my arm, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't pull it up. Now, I am as strong as a beast, and I can pull up a lot more than 11 pounds with my arm. But even then, you know, if you had a food that wasn't good for you, you could not pull it up, even if it was only a 5-pound weight, right? So that is a one thing about that. Now, so that's one way you could do it. Another way is the lean test. So again, you have to make sure that you're hydrated, and you can see I am, because I'm getting all warm in here. It's a fairly warm outside, and even though I have fans blowing from one end of the house to the other, it's not helping. So anyway, so so another way is the lean test, and again, you have to make sure that you're hydrated, but your polarity doesn't matter. The thing you're going to do is ask yourself, is this a yes, right? So if it's a yes, you'll start to lean forward most of the time, but sometimes you'll lean a little bit back. That's when your polarity is reversed, right? And so you can stand, and you stand with your feet pointed forward, not outward or inward, forward, and you're relaxed, your shoulders are down and relaxed, and you just simply ask a question. Like I would say, my name is Anastasia, and I feel myself tending to lean forward. But if I start leaning back and I ask, is this, you know, I ask the question, is this a yes? And I'll lean back, then I know that the answer is wrong, right? So this is one way to do it. This is somehow accessing the entire body system rather than like the forearm muscles or the deltoid muscles. This is the whole body. And another one, some people do dowsing. I am a little bit familiar with it. And when the answer is yes, you hold a stick like this, and when the answer is yes, it'll pull down. And if it's a no, it stays neutral, right? And my brother does dowsing. He was looking for water, and he found water every time doing that. So there are many dowsers. There's whole associations and people that give talks on dowsing. Like, who knew, right? And I found that out when I was training one of my healers, and she was telling me about how she does dowsing, and this is her way of accessing her answers. So she sees them and hears them. She's clairvoyant, clairaudient, and she could watch how energy is flowing around a person, and then would ask a question, because just because you're watching how it's flowing, a lot of times you do not know what the underlying reasons for it flowing that way. So that's what she did, and she did mental and emotional healing, and then I taught her spiritual and physical healing. And right after I taught her that, she brought a stage 4 cancer client's tumors. She shrunk them by 60% in 2 weeks by using this accessing system to discover what that person's underlying reasons for having the cancer were, aside from physical toxicity. Right. So there we have it. And then the last method that I wanted to introduce is using a pendulum. So you can get really fine pendulums. I have a really beautiful one that I bought many, many, many years ago. It's got to be at least 25 years ago. I paid a lot of money for it because it's very well balanced, and it's on a silk thread, and it's beautifully carved. And I found at first that it was a little more difficult to use. You can also get single crystal pendulums. This one happens to be quartz on a silver chain, and this one works really well for me. You can also buy metal pendulums. The thing that's really important is that they're made out of natural materials, because that allows the electrons around there to flow. And the way that I've been shown how to use a pendulum is that you want to ask it to show you a neutral. So in the neutral position, it doesn't move. So I'm going to bring my hand up so you can kind of see it a little better, and I can stabilize it. And I bring it over here, and I ask it to show me a neutral. And so as soon as I do that, it starts rotating left. And then I ask it to show me a yes. And now it's rotating in the other direction. And then the last thing I ask it is to show me a no. And now it's going back and forth. So that way, it doesn't matter whether your polarities are reversed because you've asked the object to show you which direction to go. It's a little difficult because I'm holding my hand up here, so it's a little unstable, but I could feel the pull on, I can feel it in my hand. I can feel the pull in the direction. And the interesting thing, when I got this and I started playing with it, I would tell what direction I could move it, and I could move it. I'd say, okay, now you're going clockwise, and it would go like this. And then now you're going counterclockwise. So I can change the direction by managing the flow in and out of my palm, which is the way a lot of healers heal. And that's old technology. We want new technology, but you can flow energy in and out of your palms at will. It's just like you can imagine, let's say tomorrow you're going to be running a foot race. And so when you are practicing first you practice, and then you practice in your mind's eye. You imagine yourself going through that. All of your muscles and nerves and brain will be firing as if you did. And so what you're doing is managing the flow of energy. That's like a really simple way to do it. And in this case, you can manage the flow of energy by imagining it flowing in and out of your palms. And because it follows the right hand rule, which is physics, meaning that the energy flows in the direction of your thumb, and the field flows in the direction of your fingers, the way your fingers are pointing. So they're flowing in this direction, right? So when you put your hand like this, the pendulum will swing this way if you're pulling the energy in, and if you're forcing it out, it'll start swinging in the other direction. So that way you can understand directions. It's pure and simple physics. Okay, so that's all I have for today. If you have any comments or questions about this particular topic, I'd love to hear from you. And for those of you that would love to learn some more about muscle testing and accessing the subconscious and really developing and honing that skill. And the reason why this is so important is that it gives you guidance and direction. For example, a lot of times we know somewhere that still small voice is yakking, and you're not sure whether it's the voice of fear or the voice of this is what you need to be doing. And I stopped having that voice of fear because I began to trust that God or my higher power or my spirits or whatever you believe that is guiding you, that voice comes through really strongly. And I got to a point, because I had a really tough 20 years after I graduated college. I had a very tough 20 years. I got very sick. I was in an abusive marriage. And I had a pile of stuff to do and very stressed out. And it was just like a really tough time. And when I started to come out of it, I would always say, God didn't bring me this distance and through so much to just drop me back on my head. I am ready to thrive now. So that was what I believe and still believe. And I have lost all my fear of making wrong decisions. And that's where I'd like you to get to, because living life like back then, I had no idea how wonderful this could feel. And now, because I'm always in this flow of trust, that everything I do, no matter how boring it sounds, it's always fun to me, because I'm so grateful to be above ground, breathing, and being able to talk to you like this. So anyway, for those of you that are interested in learning more and you'd like to have a conversation with me about any of these topics, please connect with me at scientifichealer.com/appointment. The link is in the description, and I'd love to have a conversation with you. So if there are any questions, I'd love to answer them. And let me see if we have any on Facebook. I don't have any here on Zoom. I am Yes, you're most welcome, Adrienne. I'm so happy that you are finding new ways to do this. It's so important to be able to access that little voice inside you and know whether it's fear or whether it's the direction you need to go in. Like sometimes you'll hear, don't go that way, and you're not realizing, is it fear or is it someone protecting you? And many times I've done that where I heard the little voice go, don't go that way, or get far into the right lane. And in that case, my sister and I were in a little sports car bombing down the mountain. And we were in a curve, and all of a sudden I moved over to the right, which wasn't a lane, but there was plenty of room to drive. And what happened was, as we came around a blind curve, another car coming at the same speed, about 60 miles an hour, was in the lane I was just in. And my sister and I just looked at each other and said, oh my goodness, we just saved our lives. She just said, Anne, I don't know how you did that, but you knew that that's not that you needed to be over there. And I was wondering why you were there, but now I know. So, you've got little voices like that. So, is there a time when one is blocked to be able to hear oneself? I have not encountered that for myself. You may have your own internal blocks that are keeping you from hearing it. And that is exactly what I'm talking about. It's that little fear voice, the little fear of being able to, being exposed, or having a dream bigger than you've ever allowed yourself to dream. Like when I first started this business, my thought of being on stage in front of 500 people petrified me. Now I'm going, okay, where's the stage? Let's go do this, because to me now it's fun. But back then I was like, I would think about it and my whole insides would quake. So sometimes you dream a dream that's way bigger than you've allowed yourself to have, and that little voice will block you to protect you. So universe does not block access to your true voice. The universe wants you to succeed, and so do I. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have discovered something new and how to access your deep desires and your subconscious, so you can get the best guidance for you or for your family and loved ones. If you like this content, give it a thumbs up rating or a 5-star rating, share it with your friends, and be sure to subscribe to my channel because I have videos coming out every week. Now, I will see you next week in the next video.